At an elite shooting range dripping with wealth and ego, a group of smug businessmen spot the janitor, small, quiet, mopping shell casings off their marble floors. One smirks. Hey, let the maid have a go. Might be good for a laugh. The room erupts in cruel laughter. Phones come out, live stream starts, comments flood in. She'll miss the target and hit the wall. Hope she doesn't shoot the mop. They hand her a gun like it's a joke, but when she lifts it, hands. Steady, eyes sharp, the sneers fade. One shot, bullseye, 2, 3, 10, and suddenly the joke was on them. The walls of the shooting range gleamed like gold, marble floor tiles polished to a mirror shine, and soft leather armchairs lined up like thrones for the rich. The air reeked of Cuban cigars and competition. It wasn't just a gun club. It was a temple for the elite, where men in tailored suits pretended to be warriors, squeezing triggers between sips of $100 whiskey. Behind them, in the shadows, was Lynn. No one asked her name. No one cared that she arrived every morning, before sunrise, long before the first Range Rover rolled in. They only noticed her when their boots crunched on shell casings, and someone snapped, "Miss, you missed a few." She would nod, kneel down, and sweep them up with the same quiet grace she used for everything. Lynn wore a janitor's uniform a size too big and shoes with soles worn thin. Her hands were calloused, her fingers always faintly smelling of bleach and gunpowder. While they shot for sport, she scrubbed for survival. She knew the feel of a trigger better than anyone in that room. She remembered it like a ghost remembers fire. But those days were locked away, behind a door she swore never to open again. It was a Saturday. The range was especially loud. Laughter barked across the hall like gunfire. A private event was underway, the Titans Weekend, a monthly gathering of venture capitalists, crypto barons, and inheritance millionaires. The kind of men who talked about risk like they invented it, while playing with tools made to take lives. At the far end of the range, a whiteboard had been set up, Shot of the Day Challenge. Names were scribbled under it. Wagers were made. Bottles of Dom Perignon lined the prize table like trophies. Lynn kept her head down, collecting casings near lane 7 when it happened. "Hey, you!" one of the men shouted, pointing his drink at her. His cheeks were flushed with alcohol and entitlement. "Yeah, you, the cleaning lady." Lynn looked up, her eyes cautious. "You want to take a shot?" He grinned, turning to his friends. "Come on, boys, let's spice it up. Let's see what the janitor can do." The room erupted in laughter. Phones were already out, cameras rolling. The idea was too ridiculous not to share. She'll probably shoot the floor. Hope she knows which way the gun points. Maybe she'll clean the target instead. Lynn straightened slowly, the mop still in her hand. She opened her mouth, tried to politely decline, but the man waved a dismissive hand. "Don't be shy, it's just for fun. We'll even let you use a real gun." His friend, a slick-haired man in Gucci loafers, added, "You land one shot on the paper and I'll double your paycheck. How about that?" Even the manager of the range, a balding man who always smiled too much when money was involved, chuckled nervously. "Come on, Miss Lynn, just a quick try. These gentlemen want some entertainment." Entertainment, that word, landed like a slap. She looked at the gun they handed her. Chrome-plated, heavier than it needed to be, decorated like jewelry. She'd seen men fumble with it all day, missing targets while pretending they were ex-military. Her fingers twitched. They had no idea who they were mocking. And for the first time in 15 years, Lynn let herself remember. The gun in her hand was cold, polished, and wrong. It wasn't the weight that made Lynn pause. It was the gloss. It was the kind of weapon bought to be shown off, not to shoot. Engraved initials glittered on the grip. Useless. Showmanship. A toy for rich boys pretending to be something harder than they were. A circle of men formed around her now, holding their drinks like medals. Their laughs had turned into smirks, calculating, amused. One of them leaned in with a grin that made Lynn's skin crawl. "Don't worry," he said, voice dripping with mock reassurance. "We'll keep the safety on." Laughter exploded. Again. Phones were raised higher. The live stream count ticked up, 4,212 viewers. Hashtags started circulating, like made V's millionaires. One shot, wonder or wander. Behind the counter, the range supervisor reluctantly toggled the scoring system on. The large digital screen blinked to life, displaying the outline of a paper target 20 meters away. Bullseye center, ringed like a ripple in still water. Lynn didn't speak. She stepped onto the mat slowly, gun in hand, the way a violinist steps. Stage, deliberate, composed. But inside, her chest was tightening, not from fear, from memory. Flashback. 15 years ago. Vietnam National Shooting Team. The smell of burnt cordite, the silence before each shot, the weight of years of training compressed into a second of breath control. Lynn had been their rising star. Gold at the Southeast Asian Games. Headlines. Sponsorships, recognition. Until she saw what she wasn't supposed to, scores doctored, medals assigned before the match, money changing hands under tables. She spoke. They buried her. The present snapped back like a trigger click. Lynn raised the pistol. The crowd still buzzed, but to her it vanished. The sound dulled, the air thickened. The world narrowed to the tiny black circle at the center of the target. Her breathing slowed. 1. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Squeeze. Crack. The room jolted. On the screen, the impact glowed. Dead center. Bullseye. For a moment, no one spoke. Then someone clapped slowly, sarcastically. Beginner's luck. One of them snorted. Lynn didn't respond. She adjusted her stance. 2. Crack. Bullseye. A murmur. Ran through the room. Someone lowered their phone. Someone else leaned forward. 3. Crack again, dead center. Comments started to shift in the live stream. Wait, what? That's 3 in the same hole. Is this edited? 4, 5, 6. Each shot landed like punctuation. Sharp, final, clean. The space between each shot grew quieter. 7, 8. A bead of sweat slid down one man's temple. His drink remained untouched. Phones began to drop from eye level. They weren't watching through a screen anymore. They were witnessing something. 9. Crack. 10. The screen showed the pattern, if you could call it that. All 10 rounds inside a coin-sized circle. The target looked surgically stitched. Silence, no laughs, no claps. Only the hum of the scoring machine and the slow collapse of a smug fantasy built by suits and money. Lynn lowered the gun gently onto the counter, as if returning something that never belonged to them in the first place. One of the men whispered, "Who the hell is she?" A search began, on phones, on Google, on old forums buried in digital dust. The name Linh Hoang surfaced. An old photo from 2008, a younger woman in the same eyes, holding a gold medal, wearing a Vietnamese flag across her shoulders. The livestream chat erupted. "She's a SEA Games champion? Bro, they made fun of a national athlete. She was forced out for exposing corruption, holy shit." The count passed 15,000 viewers. Inside the range, a businessman tried to regain footing. "That was surprising," he muttered. "Dumb luck," someone offered, desperate to break the silence. Lynn said nothing. She didn't smile. She simply turned to leave, her steps echoing louder than any shot fired that day. The range manager opened his mouth to speak, an apology perhaps, but said nothing. Because really, what could he say? He had let them turn her into a joke, and now the joke had shot them all in the heart, without a single word. The aftermath was a strange kind of quiet, the kind where no one knew whether to clap, apologize, or disappear. Lynn didn't wait for any of it. She stepped off the shooting lane, placed the pistol gently back onto the tray, and walked toward the storage room where she'd left her cleaning supplies. Her pace was calm, controlled, like someone finishing a job, not someone who had just dismantled a room full of egos. But outside the shooting range, the storm had already begun. The live stream didn't stop. In fact, Someone had pinned the recording to the top of the trending feed. Janitor outscores millionaires, 10 shots of silence. The view count climbed past 70,000 in under an hour. Clips circulated on TikTok, slowed down and overlaid with cinematic music. Each shot synced to a drum beat. Comments flooded in by the second. She didn't miss once. Not once. That's not just talent, that's mastery. She was treated like dirt and responded like a legend. Inside the club, the businessmen tried to laugh it off. "Come on, it was a joke, a warm-up round," one said, waving to a bartender for another drink. But their voices lacked conviction. The man who'd first called her out, Jonathan Crane, a venture capitalist known more for his bravado than his business sense, paced by the bar, muttering curses. His face was flushed, not from embarrassment but from something worse. Exposure. One of his assistants whispered, "Sir, Twitter's on fire. Someone found an old article." Linh Hoang, the whistleblower shooter from Vietnam. Crane's jaw tightened. "Delete the post." "We can't. It's everywhere." Another staffer approached, phone in hand. BuzzFeed wants to do a story. They're calling it "The Shot Heard in Silence." Crane grabbed the phone, read the screen, then threw it onto the counter. Behind them, the range manager tried to compose himself. He walked over to Lynn, who was now kneeling beside her cleaning cart, removing her gloves with the same calm she used when shooting. "Miss Lynn," he began, voice low. "I didn't know if I had—" She cut him off with a look, not angry but final. "You didn't need to know," she said simply. "You just needed to respect me." He opened his mouth, but no words came. She stood, wheeled her cart to the elevator, and disappeared behind the closing doors. Meanwhile, outside the luxury walls of the shooting range, the world kept turning. But now, it turned toward her. A sports journalist dug deeper and posted a full thread. Twitter. Thread. "Who is Linh Hoang, the cleaning lady who just made the richest men in the country look like amateurs? A story of betrayal, silence, and a shot at redemption." The story spread like wildfire. 15 years ago, Lynn had accused her national coach of score-fixing, of taking bribes to select athletes. Within months, she was dropped from the team, blacklisted, silenced. No legal charges, just whispers and exile. Sponsors disappeared. So did the headlines. She took a job cleaning shooting ranges to survive, quietly erasing shell casings while the world forgot her name. Until now. By nightfall, news anchors were referencing her. Influencers reposted her shot sequence with titles like, "She cleaned the floor and their pride." 10 shots, no talk, no mercy. No. And it wasn't just the public that noticed. A message landed in her inbox that evening. Official email, government seal, signed by the Ministry of Sport and Culture. "We humbly invite Ms. Linh Hoang to serve as honorary coach for the upcoming National Youth Marksmanship Program." Beneath it, "It's time we honored the silence that never missed." She stared at it for a long time, then closed the laptop. But the challenge wasn't over. The real test came 3 days later. A new video surfaced, posted by Crane himself. Framed as a redemption stunt, it showed him standing in the same shooting range, holding a pistol. "I messed up," he admitted. "So I'm calling her out. Linh Hoang, I challenge you to a rematch. Head-to-head. Let's give the people a real show." He smiled that same performative smile. 1 million views in 6 hours. The comments were brutal. "He's doubling down on stupidity. She doesn't need to prove anything. Why should a legend stoop to a clown's level?" And yet Lynn accepted. But not for revenge. Not even for vindication. She accepted because young shooters across the country started messaging her. Boys and girls from forgotten districts, underfunded schools, abandoned clubs. They saw her. They believed again. She accepted because this time her silence wouldn't be solitary. It would be echoed by thousands. The rematch was scheduled for the following Saturday. Open to the public. National television coverage. Sponsors lined up. Not a single janitor's mop in sight. Only respect. This time, she wouldn't be shooting alone. She'd be shooting for everyone who had ever been laughed at, dismissed, silenced, and this time, the whole world would be watching. Saturday came again, but the silence was different this time. Not awkward, not forced, reverent. Outside the gates of the very same shooting range where she'd once pushed a mop unnoticed, a crowd had gathered. Not of elites, but of people, families, students, coaches, athletes in faded uniforms, kids holding hand-drawn signs that read, "Clean shot, clean heart. Linh Hoang, our real champion." Silence speaks loudest. Drones flew overhead. National news vans lined the parking lot. Inside, the range was transformed. Banners read, "Special exhibition, Linh Hoang vs. Jonathan Crane, precision match." But it was never really about Crane. He arrived late, of course, wearing a custom tracksuit, sunglasses indoors, flanked by a digital media crew. He waved at the cameras like it was a movie premiere. Meanwhile, Linh entered through the back, wearing a plain black windbreaker, hair tied back, no makeup, no performance, just purpose. The room filled to capacity. Over 8 million watched the broadcast. At the range, the rules were announced. 10 shots each, identical targets, same conditions, closest grouping wins. Crane insisted on going second, wanting the drama, the tension. Let her go first, he thought. Let me be the final note. But Linh didn't care about the order. She stepped forward when called, accepted the pistol with quiet precision, and stood on the mat. A different weapon this time, one she chose herself. A simple matte black sidearm. No gold, no vanity. The lights dimmed. The range fell still. She closed her eyes, and then, crack, 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 one after another, 10 shots, smooth, clean, crisp, as if she were painting each bullet into the exact same point. The screen showed the grouping, a cluster so tight it looked like a single hole. The room exhaled. She nodded once, stepped back. Now it was Crane's turn. He stepped up like a boxer, cracked his neck, shook his hands, winked at the front rowing, raised the pistol, took aim, deep breath, and fired. Crack, first shot wide, just inside the third ring. His jaw clenched. Second shot, closer but low. Third, panic began to creep in. By the fifth, he was sweating. By the seventh, trembling. His groupings were inconsistent, scattered, frantic. The silence in the room turned sharp, like glass about to break. 10th shot. He fired it almost blind, out of rhythm, out of pride. It landed far left. The screen displayed the final scores. Linh's grouping was inside a quarter-sized radius. Crane's looked like a pattern from someone chasing shadows. The announcer tried to make it dramatic, but the outcome was indisputable. Winner, Linh Hoang. No one cheered. Instead, something deeper happened. The crowd stood in silence, a standing ovation without sound. Hands didn't clap, eyes welled. Even the cameras seemed to zoom in slower, softer. She didn't bow, she didn't wave, she simply walked over to the microphone placed by the bench, paused, then spoke. Her voice was steady, but it carried the weight of years. 15 years ago, I fired my last competition shot in silence. I was told to disappear quietly. Today, I did not come to make noise. I came to finish my sentence. The crowd erupted, not with wild screaming, but with the kind of applause that feels like thunder wrapped in grace. Crane disappeared before the cameras could find him again. His name would trend, but not the way he planned. That night, Linh's name replaced his in headlines, and not just as a shooter, as a symbol. But the reversal didn't end there. In the days that followed, Linh received thousands of letters from young girls in rural schools, from aging athletes who had given up, from whistleblowers still hiding in fear. She became more than a story. She became proof. That silence does not mean weakness, that humility is not invisibility, and that one quiet person pushed too far can outshoot the noise of the world. The shooting range where she once cleaned floors? They offered to rename it after her. She declined. Instead, she asked them to open a free training program for underprivileged youth who had the eye, the hand, the heart, but not the privilege. They agreed. Months passed. The viral buzz faded as all things do. But what remained was something harder to quantify, something that couldn't be measured in likes or headlines. A shift. The story of Linh Hoang no longer lived on the internet. It lived, in whispers between coaches and students. In the widened eyes of a young girl the first time she held a pistol with both hands steady. In the nod of an old man in a shooting club who remembered the game before it was owned by men in suits. And most of all, it lived in the new space built behind the shooting range, a converted annex, now painted soft gray, with only 2 words etched above the door: the silent line. It wasn't a memorial, it was a training center, free, equipped, open to anyone with the will to learn and the patience to aim. Sponsored anonymously, though everyone knew who stood behind it. Linh didn't teach classes, not officially, but every few weeks she would appear without announcement, sleeves rolled up, her presence alone enough to hush the entire room. She would walk past the lanes, offer a quiet correction, adjust a stance, or share a sentence that felt like a riddle but struck. Like a truth, don't chase the bullseye, let it come to you. Listen to the space between shots, that's where the shooter lives. Silence is a skill. Train it like the trigger. They listened, and slowly a new generation began to form. One that didn't grow on money or mockery, but on control, calm, and clarity. Linh's life didn't change in the way the world expected. She declined interviews, turned down book deals. She refused to let her story become a commodity. Instead, she kept waking early, still walked with quiet steps, still carried herself like someone cleaning something, not with a mop anymore, but with presence, with stillness. But now when she walked through the halls of the range, people stood, not because of fame, but because of respect. The same businessmen who once laughed now nodded. The range manager never stopped apologizing, even when she waved him off. And Jonathan Crane? He disappeared into the internet's long list of loud men who fell into silence. His company lost investors. His face was memed into oblivion. He never stepped into that range again, and yet Linh never mocked him, never mentioned him once, because she hadn't come to beat him. She came to reclaim herself. One evening just before closing, a teenage boy stood in the doorway of the silent line, skinny, nervous, calloused fingers, eyes too old for his age. He approached her shyly, holding an envelope. "I wrote to you after the match. I didn't think you'd read it." She took the envelope, smiled. "I read every letter," she said. He hesitated. "You think I could be good at this, even if no one believes in me yet?" She looked at him, really looked, and then handed him a pistol from the rack. Not gold, not polished, simple, balanced. "Let's find out." He stepped onto the mat. She stood behind him, quiet. He raised the gun, held his breath, fired. The shot landed just outside the center ring. He looked disappointed. She didn't flinch. "Not bad," she said. "Next one will be closer." He looked up, hopeful. "You think so?" She nodded. "That's how everything works. You start just outside the center, then you keep coming closer." In the end, Linh didn't reclaim her career. She reclaimed something far more valuable. Her voice, spoken in action, not noise. Her dignity, restored not by others, but by her own hands. And her story, rewritten, not by revenge, but by grace. Because, in a world obsessed with shouting, showing, and proving, she proved the rarest truth of all. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You just need to hit the mark and keep hitting it. In silence, with purpose, again and again, until they remember. Your name, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. If her story moved you, even just for a moment, carry it forward. Not with noise, not with outrage, but with attention. Look again at the people the world forgets. Listen closer to those who speak without raising their voice. And the next time, someone is mocked for standing in the wrong place, holding the wrong tool, wearing the wrong uniform. Remember, a legend doesn't need permission, just a moment and a clean shot.